What up? What you guys doing today? Sunday. Oh shit, it's my little brother Jesse's birthday. Happy birthday, Jesse. He gotta be like 60 by now. He's probably older than me. But yeah, February 4th, Sunday. It's a little chilly out, but look, it's beautiful. Yet again. Always a beautiful day down here. And in general, right? I just made like a fucking 15-minute video about fear and being exposed or being fearful and being a coward, and you know, because I was thinking, like, I don't wake up in fear anymore, right? I don't wake up in fear that I gotta collect money, you know, however I gotta do that, lying, manipulation. You know, if I didn't have my own money, I gotta figure out a way to get some money so I could get freaking drugs. And you know, I always had that gut fear that I was gonna be sick, I wasn't gonna be able to, you know, do what I felt I needed to do that day. You know, a lot of times working, I was a working heroin addict. You know what I mean? I had a job, I had kids, I had family. Shit, I was married at the time, a house, several cars, classic cars, all that shit. None of it was enough to keep me from the drugs, you know? And, you know, I was numbing the way that I felt, right? Trying to escape from my reality, you know? And, I was fearful, like, my whole youth, you know, 20s, 30s, all that. You know, even in my 40s, right, I was fearful that I'd be exposed for what I truly was, you know, or what I felt I truly was, you know, especially when I was younger. You know, the only thing you didn't want to be in my neighborhood was a punk or a bitch, right? And, you know, even if you got your ass whipped, as long as you stood your ground, you know, you weren't considered a coward. You might not be considered tough, but but at least you put in the work, you know? And that's how I lived my life, you know? I was always in fear of being exposed for what I was, you know, a user, you know, of people and of drugs and alcohol. And, you know, I used all of my trauma from the past as you know, monetary. It functioned as a you know, as a dating service and a way to get high and drunk, right? Because if people felt bad for you, or if they were like, wow, you know, he had a really tough life, you know, oh, let's help him out, or whatever it was, you know. I used all that shit. I manipulated everybody. You know, I robbed friends of mine, stole, robbed, whatever you want to call it. You know, like shit that I can't make up for. You know, I've tried, and I understand that people don't want to accept, you know, your apology, or can't forgive you, which, you know, I get it. I understand that. I know for me, I have to forgive everybody, starting with myself. Even when I know someone else did me wrong, I had to forgive myself in order to forgive them, you know, for my own shit, you know. But I always felt, up until about the last 4 years, that I was ready to be exposed for something, right? Even cutting hair back when I first started, you know, it's like, oh, they're gonna know I'm fucked up and I don't know what I'm doing or whatever, you know what I mean? And then the fear of not being good enough, right? Of everything, you know. Fear of intimacy, definitely have that still. You know, I can hug and tell my children I love them. I can give my girl a hug, tell her I love her. You know, but it's still, I have this kind of standoffishness. I'm making up words as I go along, don't mind me. But you know what I mean? And I still do that, you know. It's hard for me to let go of some of that false macho bullshit, right? I lived my whole life like that, you know. I lived my whole life, you know, being a wannabe tough guy. And I guess I succeeded at it, right? I mean, I did all kinds of crazy shit. I was a drug dealer, you know, strong arm people, You know, I robbed drug dealers. I robbed friends. Or, you know, they thought we were friends. I saw them as a payout. You know, I mean, I'm just being honest, you know. And I always had, yeah, so I don't wake up like that today, right? I wake up with a vigor for the day, right? I wake up with an energy for the day. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's a little slow until I get a cup of coffee and drop a couple deuces, you know? Like, I don't really want to talk to nobody or look anybody in the eye until that's done. But, you know, I wake up and I what am I going to do today? You know, what am I going to do today? I'm like, well, I'm not going to live in fear. That's for one, right? I'm going to forgive myself. So that's another. And the other thing is coming down here, exposing myself to the first light in the morning and getting some exercise done so that, you know, I still have some fears, right? I have fears of falling back into addiction. I have fears of falling back on my laurels and gaining all the weight back, you know. I mean, imagine carrying around an extra 65 pounds, you know, and I'm still going down. So, I mean, you know, I have fears of that, you know, fear of, you know, my kids in the world and their future, you know. But those are kind of, you know, those are decent fears to have, right? I was fearful all the time of being exposed for being a coward or a punk or, you know, being broke, you know, not being good enough for my girl, you know, back in the day and, you know, and into the future, you know, and like, those are fears that I don't really have anymore, you know what I mean? Plus, I don't fear that I'm getting exposed because I'm not cheating on my girl, I'm not stealing, I'm not manipulating her, you know, I'm not spending my kids' food money on drugs, and, you know, we don't have any fucking oil, so I have to go get diesel at the gas station, pour in 10 gallons so they can at least take a shower and have heat for the night. You know what I mean? I'm not in fear of that shit, you know? I'm not in fear of fucking ODing and falling out in my shop when it's full of fucking customers. You know, that was my last jackpot. You know, that was a big fear of mine, being exposed for being a fucking junkie, you know? And I exposed myself that day. It wasn't somebody else, you know. Probably the best thing that ever happened to me. I mean, it was terrible at the time, you know. It still, you know, weighs on my mind sometimes, you know. Like if I'm in there and I'm sweating a little because I'm busy or whatever. Like, you know, when I used to do dope, I was always like sweating, rubbing my nose. And like, you know, if I'm a little sweat, I'm like, oh crap, you know. Because I'm fearful that people will think of me as that person again, you know. And I'm not that person anymore, you know. I have a healthy fear of falling back into that shit, right? But I don't wake up afraid of that. I wake up, you know, willing to do what I have to do to avoid that, you know, at any cost, you know. So this month I'll be 4.5 years clean, right? I mean, I use cannabis. I don't recommend that to other people, but it's just what's worked for me, right? So I have 4.5 years on the 21st, other than cannabis. And, you know, last year, well, my girl always goes out to, she has twin brothers, and, you know, one lives in California, one lives in Arizona, right? So a lot of times, March, she heads out to Arizona and or California, both, you know, one and then the other, for the month of March. And, you know, I'm divorced, right? I got 2 children. So I only have, well, not only, but I have them half the week, you know, every week, you know, 3.5, 4 days, whatever, depending on, you know, they're old enough now where they can kind of go back and forth when they want. But anyway, whoa, it's icy. But, so I have a lot of time when I'm by myself at the house, you know, and last year was like the first year where I didn't text my ex-dealer. Like, you know, and like I didn't do anything those other times. I didn't follow through with it, but I did text him and I did talk to him, you know, under the guise of, hey man, I'm just making sure you're all right, you know, because I know you're still out there doing your thing. So I just want to make sure, you know, you're not dead or arrested. Because this is a friend of mine from the past, you know, from I've known him fucking 40 years or so. And anyway, you know, that was always my guys was like, you know, I'd be like, Oh yeah, I gotta call him, make sure he's okay. But in the back of my mind, I had that temptation. I didn't follow through with it, but I had the temptation, Last year I didn't have that temptation. This year, I'm not feeling it, you know what I mean? It's not March yet, but still, I'm not, it's not, plus I got rid of his number, so that's a good thing. And, whoa, it was treacherous. And so, that's a fear that I can kind of put aside, right? And, but it's always there. Whoa. You could always relapse, and that's why I do what I do on a daily basis, and make sure that I keep my head right, which helps me keep my physical and my spiritual right. So, how do you want to live today, right? Full of fear, in fear of your life? Or, do you want to wake up in the morning, with energy and vigor for your day, right? Energy and a love for life. I never loved life. I love life now. All right, I'll talk to you later. Peace.